To the east side of town we go. Our Democrat of the day is running for Minnesota House seat 47B. Ethan Cha is kind enough to join us to talk about his campaign. Hi, Ethan. How are you today?
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me on the show.
My absolute pleasure. I'm very glad you had the time today. I really appreciate that. You're out there, Susan Kent territory. I'm a fan of Susan Kent. I know she's leaving. But Senator Susan Kent, I was always a big fan of hers, and I'm glad to see her out in Woodbury. I'll say the same thing I always said to Susan Kent. I had to go out to Woodbury a lot for kids' sports because I live over in Hopkins. I got to go out to Woodbury all the time for kids' sports. That town is cute. I like Woodbury. It's got a lot of positive over there.
Oh, yeah. It's a really cute town. Yes. Lots of kids.
Lots of kids, lots of good development. It's getting developed in, as I've always said, you want to look at a model on how you develop a city that's growing with the population. You look at Woodbury.
Absolutely. You're right about that.
Ethan, why don't we take a few minutes here? You can introduce yourself. Who exactly is Ethan Cha?
Sure, yeah. Ethan Cha. Ethan Cha is DFL House candidate running for Woodbury, District 47B. A seat currently held by a DFL incumbent named Steve Sendell, who's been here for 4 years. Ethan Cha is a refugee from Thailand who came to America in 1980 and who grew up in St. Paul on the corner of Dale University in the Rondo neighborhood, who attended a world-class public education at Webster McNeil Elementary School, who was also a Cub Scout and a Boy Scout, Troop 184, and, became an American citizen in 1990. And so Ethan Cha, the refugee who became a citizen, is now a candidate running for Minnesota House.
The rise of the Southeast Asian population that came into the cities in the 70s and 80s. I think there is nothing that epitomizes America more than the opportunity. You welcome in refugees, you welcome in the needy. Something about bringing in you're tired, you're meek, that sort of thing. You bring those people in, you give them the chance and give them an opportunity, and they can shine. I think that's one of the things I love about Minnesota and Minneapolis, St. Paul in particular, is that we have a mentality of you're here, great. Off you go. Have a great time and all my best. And I think yourself it's a prime example of, with good opportunity. Look at the success ratio. Here you are running for Minnesota House. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I tell people again and again. My dad has been fighting for democracy since 1961 when he was recruited by the CIA SGU guerrilla units in the Secret War in Laos. That's 1961. Mm-hmm. He's been fighting for democracy. I'm here because, of the hard work he put in to fight for democracy. And, I tell people, Matt, that Ethan Cha is the recipient of the American dream, a dream that his dad fought so hard for to ensure that he would have the opportunities, the freedom and liberties that is guaranteed by the Constitution of America. And so Ethan Cha is the recipient of the American dream, and he's running for Minnesota House to give back and serve.
When you look at what you want to bring, you're running here 47B. Let's talk about what you feel are the important issues that need to be addressed in the Minnesota House.
Well, the important issues, definitely at the top of the ticket, is reproductive rights and women's rights and gender equality. That's the top of the ticket for Ethan Cha. On top of that, the environment. I was a cattleman and a farmer for many years. And so climate change is real. Climate change is happening. And, as legislators, as citizens and stewards of this world, we must protect our resources. We must ensure that the water, land, and air is going to be there for our children in the future. And so because our future is our children, another issue, the third issue here is going to be education. We must fully fund education. Here in Woodbury, we're 4 schools short. We need more schools. We need more mental health counselors. We need more teachers. We need to invest in our future, which is our children.
A few things to unpack here. If you don't mind, I want to go back to it. First of all, I want to say a line from your website, which if I could suggest to every Democrat out there who's running for an office, put this line on there because this is great. Supporting women's rights and gender equality, a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable community. I couldn't agree with that more. It's about making a better community. When you're door knocking out in Woodbury here, talk about when you're hearing about people who are upset about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Talk a little bit about the fact that we are living in a time where not only are women's rights taken away, now there's this big threat of they're going to get rid of gay marriage and equal rights there. Talk about what you're experiencing when you're door knocking in Woodbury with those issues.
Yeah, when I'm at the doors here in Woodbury, the issues of women's reproductive right is real, and the conversations are real. People talk about how their mothers marched and walked in the 70s to protect abortion rights. They talk about the gender equality that's happening now. Same-sex marriages, right? They're talking about women's, equality in rights, And so, these are the conversations I'm having with real families at the doors. These are, top concerns. And, it's on the line. Don't let anybody else tell you that, hey, that was just the Supreme Court and we're protected here in the state of Minnesota. No, if they've changed Roe versus Wade at the federal level, hey, there's not going to be no rock that's not going to be turned in the state legislature. So,
well, and it should be, we have to remind everyone, the Republican platform passed in May of this year was to get rid of Doe v. Gomez. They want that gone. And as much as these Republicans are out there screaming, oh, abortion's not on the ballot, they themselves were talking about an incredibly aggressive anti-choice standard in May. It's only the June overturning that they're frantically trying to present themselves as newfound moderates. The reality is, if they get into office, they're going after the women's right to choose over their own bodies in the state of Minnesota.
Right, you're absolutely right. In May, they were trying to, mount an attack on Doe versus Gomez. And now the tune's changed. Now they're saying that we're being protected by Doe versus Gomez, the same statute that they're trying to overturn in May. Mm-hmm. So, they've changed their tune. But you know what? We still got to work hard in Minnesota, take action. We got to take action now.
We can't expect this to be, they're going to go change it. They will. If they get in power, they will. Ethan Shaw is joining us right now, 47B, Democrat of the day. Want to go back to your comment about farming, and you brought about climate change. That is always I don't like the term canary in the coal mine, but it is the truth. The farmers are the ones who are on the ground, on the day-to-day production, who are seeing the real effects of climate change as it happens with their own crops. Talk a little bit about that and how that inspired you to say, you know what, we got to work on a better environment at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the climate change is happening. The temperatures are changing, right? For cattlemen, that means that, the grassland yields, per acre for feed is changing. Yeah. It's getting smaller and smaller. It means that the water table is changing, right? The clean water versus the salinity is changing. It means that the access to clean water, instead of going, 200 feet into the well, you're going to have to dig another 200 to get to 400 to get to fresh, clean water to sustain your farm, right? And so, you're looking at generations of farmers, and ranchers, losing their livelihood, after 100 years. So these things are happening, and, farmers and ranchers who experience this firsthand, they don't live by, the days. They live by the seasons. They live by the rainfall and the weather, and they are the ones who know best of the last 100 years of seasonal, what the season has yielded. They know that climate change is real and it's happening now.
It's a place. Minnesota's a place where you could throw seeds in the ground, and for 100 years you could grow anything. And I have actually heard from people with, especially the grasses, and they're saying that the yield is down dramatically. And it is a sign that we are changing. And I don't want to get like, if you go out to like Utah or to Arizona where they're just constantly watering just to grow grass, we shouldn't have that here. But yet we see it with the farmers, the ranchers, they're seeing it with their own eyes. And yet the Republican Party, once again, is not doing anything to say, okay, we need to preserve this and make this a safer world so that we can continue this agricultural history.
Yeah, I mean, their take on the environment is that corporations have rights, but the environment doesn't. Well, I don't agree with that. As a you know, as a Democrat, as a citizen, as a person, who's seen this and witnessed this, we need to protect our natural resources. We need to protect our land, air, and water. If we don't do it, who's going to do it? And we need to protect it for the future, for our children.
Ethan, you bring up your children, the children here, and I want to bring up an issue. I want to hear more on this. I have not heard about this issue that Woodbury schools are down 4 schools. Talk a little bit about this, because once again, this is, we need to be funding education completely. It sounds like there is a problem out in Woodbury that needs immediate addressing.
Yeah, I mean, overrun classroom sizes, not enough teachers, not enough mental counselors. Mm-hmm. We need to provide support for these children and teachers. Especially after the COVID-19, the last 2 years of the COVID-19, we need to jumpstart, and we need to make sure that we invest into our schools, our children, our teachers, and counselors. It's essential to a healthy community. It really is.
And when you bring up the counselors, and this is one of the things as well, this is why we need to have people that in St. Paul that not only are thinking of their district, but thinking statewide. As bad as it is in the metro, it's even worse out in rural Minnesota, where counselors are hard to come by. Even just regular, counselors in the medical system out there are hard to come by. We need to really make a major investment into all Minnesota schools to have the mental health professionals that these kids need, especially after the pandemic, to make sure that they're there to help these kids get through what is incredibly tough time right now. This mental health problem we have. This is a legitimate crisis that's only going to get worse.
It is. You're absolutely correct. We need to make sure that we have the support system here for the children, after the COVID-19. But on top of that, all this gun violence that's happening in schools, right?
Yes.
I mean, how are we addressing, the gun violence? How are we making sure that our children are safe and the teachers feel safe, in a place where, democracy, should be protecting them, and, public safety. So, on top of the mental health, there's a safety concern also,
I'm of the mindset, you talk about the guns, I've always said the same thing. If you basically made it a incredibly steep crime to illegally sell a gun to someone, because that's where these guns are coming from, illegal sales. If you sell a gun illegally, you're going to jail for a minimum of 20 years. I guarantee you'd solve a lot of the guns that are on the streets almost immediately. And it doesn't mean that you don't have people that have violent tendencies and once again, a need for mental health. But at least then we've taken away the vehicle for them to cause the carnage that is happening. And I think we need to have newer ideas on this that are, that are able to be enacted with legitimacy. Because, if something like that could actually make a major difference. And right now, I'm just tired of the other side of the aisle always saying no, no, no. I really am tired of that.
Yeah, let me share something with you. I grew up in, some pretty tough neighborhoods, being a refugee. And I am a gun violence survivor, a victim, many times over. I can tell you probably 24 stories, where a gun was involved and that I could have lost my life or somebody did lose their life, And so, these conversations need to happen, because you're not going to think about common sense gun laws until somebody and you love lost their life to a violent gun crime.
This is, Ethan, this is the perfect example. We need to have you in St. Paul at the Capitol, because you are the perfect person to have there. Your life experiences give you the perspective we need that will not only make 47 be a better district, but the entire freaking state. I want to do anything I can to help you get into St. Paul at this point.
Right. I don't have a PhD in economics, but I do have a PhD in just life experiences, And so, we need to have these conversations, and we need to encourage them and, create a safe space for communities and families to come with solutions, common sense solutions that we can work across the aisle and ensure, safe neighborhoods and safe communities and for healthy families.
And that's statewide. Ethan Cha, once again, this is 47B, Democrat of the Day. Ethan, I want to drive as many people. This is where I say this thing every time. If you're listening to us right now and you're in a relatively safe Democratic district, great. Help your local DFLer, but then I need you to get over to Woodbury, because this is basically, it's the kind of, if you cut Woodbury in a diagonal line, you are kind of the eastern side of it, the southeastern side of Woodbury completely, right?
Right. So, on the east side of Woodbury, next to Afton. And I'll tell you why Woodbury 47B is important, not only to Woodbury, but in the DFL, but to the state of Minnesota. Woodbury 47B is the path to the majority in the House of Representatives, okay? And that means that in order to hold the majority in the House, we need to hold 47B. So just like what Matt said, not in a vulnerable district, if you have time to volunteer, if you have $2, 2 cents, we can use the help here in 47B and, to ensure that Woodbury stays blue and Minnesota stays blue.
Well, and one thing about 47B, which is interesting, as the Republican Party has given up on places like Edina, they're not really putting much money into Eden Prairie anymore, kind of eastern Minnetonka. They're looking at this district, and they want this district bad. So this is a district, DFLers, what are you going to do today to make the blue wave happen? Well, one thing you can do is get over to 47B and help Ethan over there in this district. Volunteer, door knock. If you knock on every door in that district, guess what? He'll win. Door knock, volunteer, donations. What's the website people should find more information about you, Ethan?
Yeah, website is ethancha.mnhouse.com. Or you can just Google Ethan Cha. It'll come right up. And, if you want to learn more about Ethan Cha, go to the About page. You'll learn about, the genesis of my American dream, my journey, and why Ethan is running for Minnesota House.
Ethan Cha, mnhouse.com. I'll link to everything. I'll spotlight this interview as well. Ethan, all my best out there. I am rooting hard. I want you to win that seat, so all my best out in 47B.
Well, thank you very much, and, I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to be here on your show, and yes, we want Ethan to win, and Ethan is going to win.
Ethan, I couldn't agree more. Ethan Cha, Democrat of the Day, 47B.